Kia ora, koe Smithahu. Nā mai ki te whare, welcome to the House. This is Parliament's 7th week this year. Yes, it probably feels a lot longer. And not just for you. It almost certainly feels longer for at least one MP. And I'm thinking of the Speaker, Gerry Brownlee, who is beginning to carry the look of a teacher who knows that control of his classroom is slipping away.
Tell you what, I'm absolutely sick of this. It's schoolyard stupidity and it's got to stop. So we'll now go to question number... A point of it.
As it happens, he and I both have spent time in front of a classroom. He much more than I. But I can promise you, it's not a great feeling to wonder if you're losing control.
How many times do I have to say, don't bring attacks on opposition members into it before I take some action? I'll get a ton of letters tomorrow saying I've been far too lenient, so I won't be from this point on.
As the Speaker suggested there himself, the problem may be that he really is being very lenient and generous. In today's question time, he pretty much answered one of the Prime Minister's questions for him, though some might argue they were both incorrect.
The government is currently consulting on a proposal to increase household insurance costs by $400 to $948 per year per household.
The question is, is it the government or a government agency?
It's a government agency. Well, that is the government.
Well, if it has a separate board, then the board would make a decision. But Prime Minister might want to make that distinction.
It's a government agency. They have a separate board. They can make their own decision.
It did at least garner something of an answer. Most question times get really rowdy, and that's especially true if answers glide neatly away from the actual questions to talk about something else entirely.
What I can say is from the data that we've... But what I am proud about, I would just say to that member, his government's legacy. But I am proud because that was a shameful, shameful result from a Labour government. I am not taking any lectures from that member. This is a strange line of questioning. Well, again, I was just say to the member...
But that's not entirely unusual. Current feelings might be elevated because many of those alternative answers are attacks on the opposition, which is not entirely kosher. Something the Speaker does pick up on from time to time. But his reprovings might be part of the problem. They say, never make a threat you won't follow up on. Or as the Speaker said himself earlier...
How many times do I have to say, don't bring attacks on opposition members into it before I take some action?
I think that was rhetorical. It seems that during most question times, the Speaker gets frustrated. He tells people that this must stop. This is the last time. The final warning. The next person who... and so on. Don't believe me, though. Here are a few more from this last week.
The answer is not acceptable, so we have no more of that. There's been a little bit of a move towards personal reflections, which are completely unacceptable under our standing orders, so they are to stop. I just make the point that that's the last time someone is going to use a point of order to attack another part of the House. It's not acceptable. Put your hands up. Who wants to go? I've made the point, and I think people should just take it on board. If there is another attack on the other side as a result of an answer to a question, the person making that attack will be leaving the House for a period of time. We're about to go into an absolutely silent question time if that sort of racket keeps up. Those sort of questions are going to be dealt with very severely from this point.
You get the idea. And were they dealt with severely? No. Did anyone get kicked out? No. They're not all for the same infraction, it has to be said, but many are. The things that have got the Speaker's goat most often recently are government ministers answering opposition questions by attacking the opposition, and government ministers asking patsy questions, or making points of order, to attack the opposition. Oh, and even worse, under Parliament's rules, government ministers asking their colleagues patsy questions in order to make personal attacks on members of the opposition. The last of those clips is worth revisiting with a little context for better understanding. So here from last Tuesday is David Seymour asking a question of the Prime Minister during a series of questions from Green co-leader Chloe Swarbrick.
Could failing to understand that be a reason why someone's one-time business, a little hole-in-the-wall cafe on Mount Eden Road, only lasted a few weeks?
No.
Now that question led to Gerry Brownlee's reminder you heard earlier of the ban on personal reflections. And then this Tuesday, late in question time, and after a number of other warnings, there was this patsy question to the Prime Minister from Nicola Willis, also during a set of questions from Chloe Swarbrick.
Does the Prime Minister agree that the profit motive is a key principle of a capitalist market economy? And would he advocate other forms of economic philosophy, such as, for example, Marxism?
I don't know. I'm sorry. That was asking the Prime Minister. It's asking the Prime Minister to answer a question for which he has no responsibility. He may have an opinion, but not as a Prime Minister. Those sort of questions are going to be dealt with very severely from this point.
You can just feel the punishment coming, can't you? Except if I hadn't paused the tape there, the very next thing you would have heard was this.
Submit a question.
Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does the Prime Minister or any member of his cabinet intend to take the views of someone who started a small business which went bust in about 5 weeks and then come to this Parliament and start preaching to the rest of us?
Yes. It was the even more naughty personal attack posing as a patsy question. In fact, the very same attack as last Tuesday. And what was the response?
I doubt he has any particular responsibility for that.
You've been listening to The House. E te whakaranga koe ki te whare. This program is produced with funding from Parliament's Office of the Clerk. Mā te wā.